When the witch of Freedom carried out her lethal harvest under the moon, she and her fellow practitioners adhered to an ancient precept of her kind. They worked according to a complicated calendar of days and hours to collect their plants for good or evil. The changing of the seasons and church offices, feast days and holy days of which identified currents of especially potent spiritual influence, were all taken into consideration by this magical calendar. To stir a quarrel between lovers in Freedom, the witch picked vervain by the dawn light of a May morning to strew in their path. For charmed open-locked doors, she waited until St. James' Day in high summer to pick the potent herb. The essence of the charm was cut chicory leaves at midday and again at midnight on that fateful day. According to ancient traditions, Bethany was the most powerful, gathered on May Day. When the herb was being harvested, a prayer to the Holy Trinity made it a healing symbol, while a prayer to Satan made it ready for evil deeds. In the sorcerer's pharmacopoeia, the majority of plants had this comparable capacity for either good or evil. Only after a lifetime of meticulous study could the magician correctly handle them for the desired outcome. That first act of gathering plants was risky because it was the first irrevocable step in the ritual of casting spells. That initial step into the world of enchantment, sometimes benign, sometimes deadly, had to be made carefully and appropriately for the spell's effectiveness as well as the safety of its creator. This involved careful knowledge and collection procedures, for vervain's toxic qualities weren't released unless it was harvested by a person. To nullify them, many spellcasters of good intent fastened the stems of these plants to a dog's legs. The plants were uprooted by the animal as it fled, making them suitable for witchcraft. For cutting leaves that would turn wicked when they came in contact with skin, sorcerers among the Druids created iron scissors. The Greek magi coated themselves with oil before gathering plants, and consumed garlic, whose potent aroma was thought to repel bad spirits. The ancient practitioners beguiled each plant with charming incantations in order to draw power into its sap at the time of harvest. However, those malicious spellcasters fed nefarious powers of plants by spitting on the seedlings and watering them with the poison of their own evil. Then, in order to entice utmost malice from a plant, they harvested it beneath a moon whose enchantment was heightened by a flickering light of a torch held by a corpse. Black and white witches alike frequently sprinkled honey on the ground after an herbal harvest to appease Mother Earth, from whose breast the plants had derived their power. The herbs they carefully selected have long histories of magic reaching back to the dawn of time. In the epochs before the rise of man, animals had learned about the characteristics of various plants. For instance, serpents, known for shedding their skin, sought out fennel because of its capacity for rejuvenation. In midsummer, a sealed door seemed a flimsy defense against the wraiths and spirits unrestrained outside. The wise homeowner knew the effectiveness of fennel to ward off witches on such evenings, hanging it on the door frames and wedging into the keyhole to keep out ghosts. The centaur Chiron, who had studied medicine with Apollo, discovered the amazing mysteries of numerous herbs during the time when immortals coexisted with humans on the earth. In the hands of healers like himself, one plant, which was named after him, the centaury plant, had the ability to thwart infernal enchantment. Centaury, though, was also capable of its own enchantment when steeped in lapwing's blood and combined with oil. When such a potion was lit in a lamp, sorcerers claimed it made everyone who entered its light believe they were witches. Another plant, given the name Angelica, Archangelica, hinted at its association with Saint Michael, the archangel, who had engaged in heavenly combat with Satan. Angelica was a powerful component against evil and danger. drawing on its namesake's ability to drive out the devil. According to old traditions, even a small piece of angelica, harvested while the sun was in Leo, might ward off plague and storms. Another helpful herb with the ability to guard against physical and spiritual harm was rosemary, which was a component of countless protective amulets. Only good people were able to cultivate it because of how tremendous its natural virtue was. A single sprig of the pine-scented herb could protect the wearer against both daytime encounters from bad spirits and their midnight visitations disguised as nightmares. Any man who worried a poisoner may be present among his dinner guests would be advised to use a spoon made from rosemary bush, whose wood could clean contaminated food. The virtuous could be protected from the devilish antics of witches and fairies by a variety of plants and flowers. In order to ward off enchantment, cowherds would decorate their cattle horns with marsh marigolds. Parents would tie daisy chains around their children's necks to prevent fairy abductors from leaving chainlings in their bed. But not all plants were good. Some could be employed to promote witchcraft rather than to prevent it. Parsley was rumored to grow only in the garden of evildoers. Even then, it took 9 trips to the underworld for it to begin to grow, before it sent up shoots brimming with the evil of the devil himself. The basil plant had such strong negative energy that the miasma emanating from its leaves was lethal. The fern was served as a helpful tool for the magician. As a result of St. Patrick's curse, ferns were unable to produce blooms and instead bore tiny seeds with the capacity to render an expert sorcerer invisible. Such plants weren't very potent on their own. Spell casters enhanced the plant's potency with the use of other materials from the witch's kitchen to create their most powerful magic. The mixture frequently received power from animal bones, skin, or blood. One sorcerer's witch bag, which contained mole's teeth, mouse bones, hedgehog bristles, cat's ears, and bear's claws, was used in evidence at his trial when he was brought to justice by terrified townspeople. The ingredients from the afterlife, such as human blood, brains, and flesh, were used in some of the strongest ointments and unguents. These components were obtained from hung criminals and unbaptized babies who still bore the guilt from Adam's fall, since the taint of sin increased their potency. For their grotesque cravings, witches looked for lone gibbets and abandoned cribs. Fat extracted from a dead criminal had far more miraculous applications. It might be turned into tallow by prolonged boiling. Candles made of this abominable wax had the ability to reveal undiscovered riches.